time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand with your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
Welcome back to another round of Brandy. I'm here with Scott, and today we're discussing brand responsibility and what that means for businesses.
Brand responsibility. You know, it brings to mind in a famous quote that actually came out in 1962 in a comic book. It was the end narrative Stan Lee wrote in the Amazing Spider-Man comic series in 1962, and it made it in the films. It's kind of it's a pivotal quote that a lot of people have heard. But Uncle Ben told young Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility.
It's seriously one of the classic sayings. I swear, I wrote several papers in high school using this as the foundation to the paper.
It's very applicable saying when it comes to your brand, that with a great brand comes great responsibility. And what do we mean by that? As a designer, let's just start off. We'll talk about the tip of the iceberg of brand, right? The logo.
Oh yes, the logo, the face of the brand. You know, it makes a lot of sense why people do put so much pressure on the logo, because it really is. It's that first visual indicator. It's something that, you know, us being humans, we do focus so much on visual signals.
And for a lot of people out there, they equate the logo and brand to be one and the same thing. And yes, the logo is part of the brand, but the brand is not reduced down to just the logo.
Yeah, that's a good point. I always relate it to, like, when you think of a friend, you think of their face first, but when you do think of that person, it's not their entire identity is their face. They have a personality. They may dress a certain way. They have a certain sense of humor or whatever it is.
But it starts with having a good logo. And if a lot of small businesses, because they're short on budget or whatever, they will hire lower rated designers or even have a friend of a friend who has Adobe Illustrator design their logo for them. They're designing it in a bubble. They're designing it for themselves and what they think would look good. Whether that resonates with the potential audience or not, that speaks into the actual instance of the logo that was designed. But we're going to speak more to assuming that you have hired professionals that are good at logos. And there's a lot of designers out there, but logos are crafted in and of themselves. And not every graphic designer, their strong point is logos. They may be good at editorial design. They may be able to design, nice social media posts or websites. But when it comes to logos, that is a special breed. So if you're searching out, like, do your homework and really hire some people that are good at logos, right. and do that. And that's not just a shameless plug for us at Motif. It really isn't, because we may not be for everybody, but those that are still just starting out, that's a good investment, is to have a good logo to start with.
Yeah, it's like getting started with your best foot forward, really.
But it just what I've come to see and what we've come to see over the years is clients taking what started off as good, and it starts to go downhill. They start over time. They start off with snazzy looking business cards and letterhead, and it's so funny we still talk about letterhead. I don't know any company nowadays that's new that sends off letterheads.
AARP.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you've got your essential identity system, website, and all those things. And they almost feel like they treat it like a wind-up toy. A brand new toy. It's great, fresh batteries. Now put it on and let it go around and do its thing, right? And leave it unattended, and over time, or make decisions that degrade it. And like I said, I want to start with the tip of the iceberg. There's some key things that I see people do all the time with their logos that, as a designer, just drive me crazy. Pushes my buttons.
Yeah. So from a designer lens, let's give them some kind of basic principles of what not to do with your logo. Let's say you started with a great logo, and then to be responsible, what are some things you shouldn't be doing with your logo?
A couple key things. So just general rules. Your logo wants to breathe. No one likes to be stifled, claustrophobic. cramped into a tight space. And so a lot of times people will crowd text or images around their logo. They don't give it what we call clear space, which is a more of a mathematical formula based on the design of the logo. How much white space, negative space, padding you put around your logo. The more padding, the better is my general rule, because it allows the eye to drift to that logo and lock in on it. When it has other things around, the logo becomes secondary. It's not part of the brand. So being mindful of that. Special effects, your logo is not a movie. It does not need CGI to make it better. It doesn't need its own special effects department. So drop shadows, glows, any outlines on them, things that the logo doesn't work against this busy background, so we're going to put a white outline around it. Yeah. Those types of things are just bad execution choices. And a lot of times what happens is particularly small businesses, and again, rightfully so, you pay a lot of money up front for the starter set, your essential, visual identity. And then maybe you downgrade and you work with a less than stellar designer or someone that's mediocre, right? They're good at it, but they're not great. And then maybe make some poor decisions and then have them continue to execute your brand, right? They make common mistakes like that.
I think it goes back to being responsible, and just like we're talking about brand responsibility. So even choosing a legitimate designer to make your first steps out that door for your business, that's a responsible decision of going
for the brand.
I'm not just going to wing this. I'm not going to do it myself or have my cousin do it or have my daughter who is, messing around on Illustrator do it. But no, I'm going to be responsible with my business and my brand and actually have a legitimate design created that represents this and is actually looking at the market and doing some analysis. And then, like you're saying, is like now the application and how this thing is going to be treated and nurtured, it's a responsibility.
Yeah, you don't start off with, I'm just going to start off with a beta, and then, when I save up the money, I'll hire and have a real logo designed. No, because that's like first impressions. It's like me going into an interview wearing a stained shirt with my fly open. And trying to make a good impression, and that's not going to happen. And
you'll leave an impression, but
but not the one that I want. Not that it'll be a memorable impression, but again, not the one that I want to convey.
We'll talk about you for weeks.
I think So I think those are the types of things that people need to be mindful of. Is that your logo. It's part of the responsibility you have to your brand. In other words, treat your brand like it's a pet. It's something that you want to nurture, you want to tend to, you don't want to neglect, you don't want to abuse. So that means don't take for your brand, and let's particularly in your logo is not made of silly putty. It is not meant to be stretched, compressed to fit a closed space. I see that all the time. I see that is the most amateur thing I see, whether in print ads or I see it all over the place, and it drives me nuts. And people go, I'll just we need the logo, but it needs to fit in this size for this Crunch. Google ad or whatever. And so they just kind of, they scrunch it or they compress it to make it fit. And that devalues the integrity of the letter forms that make up your word mark. Yeah. That devalues, particularly if your logo has any circular elements, they become elongated. Yeah. So those are just in general rules of thumb things that I think right off the bat, people that don't know what they're doing, do it.
It's like you don't know what you don't know. And so from a design perspective, like Scott's sharing some very specific design tips on this of like, don't do these things. Because if you do look at the successful brands out there, they're not doing this. Yeah. It's just like, taking care of yourself, making sure your hair is done, making sure you're wearing the right clothes.
Proper hygiene.
You don't smell. You are doing those things because you're upkeeping, you're nurturing, you're being responsible. And so even when it comes to your brand, it's like all these little things matter. And like we've said before and written about nonstop in Brandy is like how you do anything is how you do everything. And people are taking that in. So if your logo is this rushed job that now you're just plastering everywhere or scrunching it into spaces it shouldn't be, then that is a representation of your business. And that's going to start altering the perception of your business.
Either altering it or starting off on a bad foot.
Oh, yeah.
Very bad.
And it's like when I think of responsibility, it is not only having that you're being proactive in a lot of ways, but you're also are nurturing what you have. You're maintaining. Yeah. You're fixing it. You're keeping it. like you said, being proper hygiene. You're doing all these things and looking ahead and going, okay, how is this going to play out? That's responsibility. And when it does come to your brand, it's like, okay, what areas can you be responsible in the design, visual, aesthetic, and then beyond that with the brand itself of just the actual strategy of it, because you spent so much time trying to birth this business and having a brand that's actually focused on a certain audience, then you're just going to let that go to the wayside and start losing focus as you're moving forward.
Yeah. The investment in your visual brand is paramount. And when you're trying to take your business from point A to point B, again, we've talked about navigating, setting a course, having clarity in your brand, and figuring out where your brand wants to go. Where do you want your business to go? Your brand's going to guide that, and because that is the relationship part of your audience. So when you start cutting corners, you're not going to get from point A to point B. You cut 4 corners and you've got a circle. So you're going to meander and come right back to where you are, and you're going to have spent a couple of years investing in some other things, going, why am I not there? Yeah. And it's like, well, because you were making poor choices, either trying to cut some corners, you're trying to cut some costs. Yeah. And I feel like the brand itself, there's so many ways that you can communicate and signal your brand, and your visual identity, your logo being one of them, is an aspect. Your logo doesn't have arms. It can't fight back. So be nice to your logo. Don't abuse it. And that's the starting point of this conversation. But it extends to so many other things, right, Reilly? Beyond just the logo.
Yeah. And the first thing that always comes to mind is that clients always talk about brand clarity and having clarity of their brand, like we talked about in episode 1, and helping. That's why we go through all the strategy, and we go through the positioning, and we look at the market, and we're doing all these things where we're like trying to get outside of the very kind of closed view of the business and actually looking at the market, looking from an outside perspective and going, okay, what does this mean for the strategy? What does this mean for the brand? And being able to kind of outline that and set that up for the brand, because it's like that focus is what's going to set you apart and help you grow. But if as your business gains momentum and you're moving ahead, it's like that lens, it really is just like it starts to get blurry over time. That's just natural like entropy, where it just slowly just keeps degrading. So you have to stay on it. You have to be responsible. It's like going to the gym. Like you have to stay on top of it, or your muscles will just continue to slowly dissolve.
And sometimes a lot of these little inconsistencies in brand won't necessarily derail your current audience. If you've already got some fans, for consumers and stuff, a little bit poor design choice or something isn't necessarily going to break that loyalty from them.
No,
But it speaks into, I think, to me, when I think of great brands, I think about the details. It's the attention to details. We've talked about this from whether it's Apple and the exorbitant length of money and design that goes into their packaging, and even opening up a new Apple product and all the tabs and all the everything, the simplicity. You can't lose sight of the details, because your business and your brand is always going to be a new thing to someone.
Right. Yeah.
And it's that idea of making good impressions.
Yeah. And that again comes back to like being responsible. It's like knowing who you are, knowing what you stand for, and maintaining that consistency. It's like being a luxury brand, and then you're, oh man, we really need to sell this stuff. We need to make a move. We have so much inventory, and then running sales and putting up red signs that sale. Everyone, come on, hurry. And it's like you are not being responsible with your positioning and what you initially set forth with of no, we are a luxury brand. We are priced at this point. This is the value. And now we're doing sales just out of desperation.
Right. And that as you were talking about that scenario, the word that jumped to my mind was desperation. It conveys desperation. And I see that all the time when I see that with brands, and especially brands that feel like somehow their main marketing platform is social media. And so they feel like on a daily basis they have to post. And so they start posting. And maybe this brand has hired some young, media savvy, social media marketing manager, right? A couple years under their belt. And they start cranking out this stuff, and they don't, maybe they're like, well, I know how to talk to my people. I know how to do this. And so they're out there and they're seeing what everyone else is doing. So they're doing fun, jokey reels, or they're little TikTok videos that, is it's just white noise. Yeah. And it comes across desperate, comes across like you're trying too hard. And you're better off with a very a strategically planned, focused, brand-centric social media plan, rather than feeling like you got to keep up and you got to constantly be posting and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like responsibility comes down to behavior, and you as the business owner or the marketer behind the brand. It's like your behavior matters because you're making decisions based off that.
Yeah.
And if you look at financial markets, behavior always gets wonky whenever there's a ton of desperation or a ton of euphoria. So you put that in a brand's lens, and it's like when a brand gets very desperate, it starts acting very wonky and making very irresponsible decisions. And on the other hand, when there's a ton of euphoria in a brand, when the sales are through the roof, you start making bad decisions as well because you got plenty of cash, things are flowing. Who cares? Let's just do it. Boom, boom. You're making all these things. And that's when a lot of people get in trouble financially. So with the brand itself, it's like keeping that in mind that no matter what's going on in the market or the larger economy, it's like having that responsible mindset. And to me, it's like brand has that connection because like we've said, it's like brand is long-term. It is the long-term vision. And just like even with memberships and subscriptions, like you're focusing on the long-term value of your customers.
It's a long-term investment too.
Yeah.
You know, here's the thing. You're never as a business, if you have a logo and then, you know, you improve the logo, right? In a good way, right? You're not going to be able to track the return on that investment. Yeah. You aren't. No. You aren't. You could look at it and go, it's sales. Oh, wow, my sales increased when I updated my logo. There's just so many factors that come into play in that. Yeah. But brand is one of those things that, and I get it because with small business owners, money is everything. You're trying to pay the rent. You're trying to put food on your table at the same time, and keep a business afloat. And so, you know, but the idea is that the core principle is if you have to invest money if you want to make money. You can't just not invest money and expect to make money, because then your value, your lens by which you're doing all your business decisions is based on value and cost. Yeah. Classic example. You know, and this I've seen this with past some clients where, you know, they start off with great branding, asset files, logo, all that stuff, even some merch, even some T-shirt ideas, right? If that's what they're selling, and then it takes a vendor, and the print vendors are infamous for this. Whether it's screen printers, whether that selling you bags or your logo on a pen, who knows? Whatever they're selling you, right? Businesses get approached by promoters, promotional materials, and vendors, and they will offer free design services.
Yeah, get your logo on a stress ball.
We'll design you some free merch shirts, and here's the printing cost, and here's how much you make. And all of a sudden, it becomes this cash cow. All of a sudden, the dollar signs start appearing in the client's eyes. They get excited about minimal investment, right? Except for just the cost of the garment, and then the markup, and now all of a sudden the money's coming in. Mm-hmm. And after a while, and the print vendors that work for screen printers, trust me, they are not high-level professional designers. No. They are production artists, and they're used to taking files that clients supply, and they maybe they've got dreams of being great designers. Very seldom have I seen in-house vendor designs blow my mind. And so what ends up happening is that these clients will all of a sudden start providing their audience a lot of merchandise where the logo is being, I don't know, bastardized, for lack of a better term, where it's literally being transformed, changed, new fonts for the name, right? And a script font for the name on this shirt, and blah, blah. And all of a sudden you've got so many iterations of your brand that, yes, some of your core audience is wearing and buying, and that's great. But it's again about if you want to take the brand places, you have to be mindful of that. You can sell a lot of merch, brand merch for your store, your brand, your product, whatever it is, that is high level, that is on point with the brand, right? It doesn't mean that you have to settle for free or really, really cheap design services to produce the merch that will get you there. Yeah. And in the end, that is a disservice to the brand. That's inconsistency in the brand. And we've seen some brands that unfortunately they're going downhill because they've fallen into that trap of the the vendor freebies.
Which I don't know why that has to be said. Is that it's like if someone offers you something for free, like
Yeah,
you get what you
pay for. You get what you pay for. If someone's giving you free, free stuff, but the sale of that and it's supposed to serve your brand is supposed to be on that. If you're dealing with someone that doesn't know your brand, doesn't really know your audience,
no.
They're just working in a bubble because there may be some vendor down in LA or overseas or whatever on the East Coast, and they don't know your local market. They don't know your local customer base. They don't see the vision of your brand, and they could care less. Even if you try to explain it to them for a half hour, they're not going to care.
No, because they're not.
For them, they're speaking to you saying, "Hey, we'll waive our design fees. You just order the designs, and we're good, right?" Because they're making their money on the production. You're making money off the sales. But in the end, a year down the road, you look back and go, it's all over the map.
Well, and then the client would come back around, the business, and be like, I need more merch stuff. We need to sell more.
Yeah.
And then what's in the favor of the printers that them going, oh yeah, yes you do. You do need more. Let's make you more. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Exactly.
Because they're playing the quantity game, and a true brand strategist or brand designer would be like, no, let's hold off on that. Like,
Right.
You're already selling a lot of these. Should we maybe remove an item, or maybe let's focus more on this other item that's already selling like hotcakes, And like,
Right.
it comes down to the strategy rather than playing the quantity game. And that's where one of my man crush is Rory Sutherland.
Wait, do you say man crush?
My man crush.
Your man, one of many, I think.
One of many. I have several. I have a board of directors in my head, and this guy sits on it. And
Okay.
Rory Sutherland.
Mental board of directors.
Yeah, no, it
You're
works
the only
well.
guy I know that has a mental board of directors.
And so then you have these different personalities in here, like Walt Disney, Rory Sutherland, and
these are guys that guide your life.
And then you can put a thought forward, right?
Okay.
And then run it by these different personalities and how they'd respond.
Okay.
It's weird.
I like it. No, that's how your mind works.
Yeah.
Go for it.
And so he's the vice chair or something of Ogilvy, which if you're not familiar with Ogilvy, they're big international advertising. And he always talks about how, or he said it before, that with businesses, it's not so much they keep investing in what's effective. Because sometimes proving something is effective is really hard. Just like Scott was saying about investing in brand, is that it's such a long-term investment that the ROI isn't this instantaneous return on what you paid. But it's these businesses keep investing in things where you can prove an effect. And that's dangerous, because just like with the merch, or just like getting your logo put on a stress ball and a pin and a frisbee and all these things that now that's actually part of the course.
Beer koozie.
A beer koozie.
Oh my
you gotta have
gosh.
this and a hat and all these things. And it's like you're seeing the effect, and that's the fallacy.
Yeah.
They're not effective. You're seeing an effect and going, wow, look at my logo's on this and on this and on this and on this. And you're not actually seeing that they're effective. And that's part of the problem. And that's where brand and long-term thinking is, no, we're trying to figure out what is the most effective approach in all these different ways. And you make decisions. And the root of decision is to cut off. You have to subtract things to make proper decisions where you're just going forward and going to the core of it.
Yeah. It's think of it, if anything, and this isn't, we're not trying to pitch any one particular business service, but think of it, like people that like us that we do branding, do design, and that's what we do. We're in that industry niche. It's kind of like we're kind of like lawyers or doctors. It's like you don't accountants. It's like people that you want to constantly be in contact with questions, with people that are counsel, and that's why a lot of times just. And again, my intent is not to make a blatant pitch for us, but for example, we prefer to have we're not like a one-time shop. We don't prefer to just design a logo and then boom, there you go. Yeah. We prefer to check in with you and have you check in with us and kind of it's a long-term investment because we care about the brands that we create. We care about the clients, and we want the clients to have that same appreciation. And so I'm pitching this from the mountaintops of just be mindful that, like Reilly eloquently said, you don't know what you don't know. But there's certain things, like for me, I know what I don't. There's certain things I know I don't know, right? And there's certain things I'm not good at, and so I'm going to seek out people that have a heck of a lot more experience, knowledge, and just know what they're doing for certain things in my life. I cannot fix a car, so I'm going to take it to a mechanic because I could try. I work on my motorcycle, but taking on my car they're like minded, but it's like I'd rather not because I can't afford to to F it up.
Yeah, and that's being
Right.
responsible, because you're trading off going, okay, the risk of me actually making this situation worse
Exactly.
is pretty high probability versus I'm going to pay a little, take it to a professional who does this day in and day out.
Right.
And I'm being responsible with my brand because I'm having it properly tended to.
Or, for instance, if you have a very complex financial sector, you've got a lot of investments. Maybe you're pulling dividends from an IRA, whatever it is, right? You got investments and real estate and write-offs and all other stuff. You probably aren't doing TurboTax on your own. You probably have a CPA, right? Mm-hmm. And you're working with them because they're going to know the appropriate write-offs. They're going to want to, they know what they know, and they know more than you. And so you rely on that wisdom. And so no matter where you're at in your brand, just you're good. You got into this because you're good at your business. That doesn't mean you're good at your brand. And so that's why we say about brand responsibility and this kind of topic we're rambling on right now is the idea is that you start off with something good, hopefully. That's what we want. We want you to have something great to start off with as a brand. But then there's responsibility beyond that, and that's up to you to make sure it's being well tended to and not neglected. And this isn't just for small businesses, right? We were talking earlier about like a big corporate brand that you felt it was kind of a miss, right? You want to share that?
So Target made these custom 5-gallon buckets, like you see with Lowe's and Home Depot, the classic bucket.
Like paint or construction bucket. You put whatever you want in it, buckets.
And it is funny because when you do think of those, you do just think of those two brands, Home Depot and Lowe's, really. And
Home Depot, the orange, classic orange, right?
Iconic. A less hardware-y store brand came out with it, and it was Target. Target launched these classic Target red buckets and then plopped their logo right on it, which fine idea. That's fun and interesting. And hit a different part of the market where, hey, you need a utility bucket. It's handy around the house, but you don't want to have a masculine hardware brand. So here you go. Here's Target. But they neglected to consider that the curvature of the bucket was going to affect their very circular logo.
Very iconic logo.
The iconic, perfectly, circular logo now looks like an egg on the bucket.
So even a huge corporation that has a massive in-house design department made one small ill-fated decision in just the size, how big they put that logo on it and the effect it would have. Yeah. And it was one of those things that wasn't accounted for, obviously in the design mode and maybe in the mock-up mode, but upon application, there it is. In the end, it's now not the iconic, perfectly symmetrical Target. It's now a egg.
It's now
not an egg, but more like an oval.
Yeah.
But
and I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, okay, either the in-house, they might have goofed, somehow this got approved, or the production across seas who makes these buckets
made it bigger.
Yeah, they either were like, oh, we'll slap it on there, send us the file, boom. Now here's 1 million of these buckets going to all the Targets, and that's that. And so it's kind
that's
of
all she wrote.
It's just one of those things where it's like you have to think through, and that's like it is come down to like strategy and having that mindset of going, okay, what's the impact of this?
Yeah. And we've been talking, low elevation stuff too about on your brand execution. Let's take a step back, because I think, to me, and I know you, Reilly, agree with this mindset that brand responsibility is also, it's not just the where the rubber hits the road, how the business card looks, how the sign, the temporary closed sign on the door looks, and all these other things. It's the brand responsibility should be the lens filter by which you make all of your business decisions. Yeah. Having brand responsibility means you have your brand so locked in your mind that every time you're pondering doing this or doing that, you're taking a step back and putting on your brand glasses and going, how does this conform or fit or vibe with your brand? Is it going to make it better, or is it going to actually maybe change it up a little bit? Yeah. And I think a lot of times, small businesses in particular, start making decisions, business decisions, whether it be product or services, that kind of go counter to what their brand is trying to convey.
Yeah. And that's a lot of people like, oh, well, Steve Jobs and all these like idols that business owners all have and entrepreneurs. It's like some of these guys were so focused, like abnormally focused on this is what the brand is. Nothing else. Like they were the filter that everything went through.
Yeah.
And they were anomalies. And so thinking that you're going to be like Steve Jobs or be like any of these great idols that we hold up in capitalism is most likely not the case. And so you do need assistance on maintaining that filter. And you need, it's like again, going to the gym. It's like you need that personal coach who's going to be your accountability partner, who's going to push you, who's going to make sure you're there at 5 a.m. working out and staying on top of it, because that lens is going to get out of focus. And the brand will, as you're dealing with the business, doing all that, it's going to kind of just deviate from that path. And so you always have to be pulling it back. And that's where I think a lot of businesses will lose it, that they think, okay, I did my brand checklist, boom, done, set in stone. Now here we go. And then a couple years go by and the thing just starts eroding because they're not actually staying on top of it.
It's almost like you need to find, small business should find some sort of like brand Yoda in their life. The wise elder Jedi master that you're able to approach and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And they may go, yay or nay, like that's good. Or I would maybe pivot and do this because this is going to be more true to your brand. This is going to speak better to your audience. But for everybody that's striving to get a great brand, this is what we're talking about being responsible, is that you have to be willing to invest. You have to be willing to invest in counsel. You have to be willing to make a long-term investment in execution of your brand, the visual execution of your brand, and maintaining it. Because a lot of times you're working in a vacuum, and a small business owner that runs a boutique, it's probably them and their part-time clerk, and they're making business decisions. They're making decisions on the brand, and they're doing things, but it's affecting the brand, and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
And in the end, they just have this confusing, lukewarm brand that's gathering some audience and gathering some sales, but it might have so much greater potential.
Yep.
So I think Reilly and I look at it from the outside, and we see people making all these crimes against brand, and I think that's where with great brand comes great responsibility. It's that you've got such potential power in your brand, and that's really what it is. Take any brand, you could name a slew of great brands. They started off small, just like everybody else, right? Apple started in, a garage, a house, two guys. It started off small, but they dreamed big. They understood brand. And like you said, you're not going to be the next Steve Jobs. But guess what? Steve Jobs left a cool roadmap. And so look at some of the branding greats out there, see what they've done, and see how they kept going, you know what, we can do better. We need to do better. The brand deserves better.
Yeah.
And you will start to reap that investment. You will. But again, it's, brand is such a, it's so hard to track brand.
Yeah, it's definitely.
And it's kind of like if you have a specific ad campaign, marketing campaign, and let's say there's things that can be gauged very easily. If you're holding an event and you have a specific marketing campaign on how you're going to advertise for that event, you've got ticket sales, and based on the ticket sales, was that marketing event effective or not? Yeah. If you had low ticket sales, you have to either ask, okay, was the price point too high? Was it not advertised well? Did we not advertise it to the right crowd? Yeah. You can usually track in that single little instance something like that. But long-term brand, there's so many factors that go into play. It's hard to pinpoint if your brand isn't functioning right. What are the issues at hand?
Yeah, and it's like again, in the financial markets, if you're familiar with it, you have quantitative and qualitative assets, and that's where when it comes to like the internet, you do have click funnels and you have all these things where it's like, okay, you spend thousands and thousands on ads, you're getting this many clicks, you keep optimizing that. You keep optimizing it further and further and further until every dollar is returning something, and you keep just feeding the machine. And that's very, it is very quantitative. It's very like you're playing the numbers game and you're optimizing it to the most extreme and just very based on the numbers. Qualitative is all brand. It's all emotional. It's all relational. And that's really where it's like, you can't track this thing. It's living and breathing, and it's right beneath our noses at the same time, where we all experience it. We all know, we know a good brand and we know a bad brand, right? And it's like, everyone does have one, and being able to nail the attributes of what that is, it comes down to, consistency and that responsibility of building that brand little by little by little. And I feel like that's where a lot of businesses could get ahead of their competition and be able to really shine, as if they do, with the responsibility, they can unlock that power. And, like you said, having a Yoda by your side can always help you stay on track.
Or Gandalf. I mean, it could be.
Or Gandalf, your preference. But
or Dumbledore.
Having that.
Sorry, I'm going off a tangent.
Hagrid. That'd be a whole fun episode. But it's like having that accountability partner. And it's just like the gym. It's just like the gym. It's like having that person that's going to push you and go, hey, is that the right choice? Should you be eating that? Or you should probably go to the gym? Just really staying on top of you and helping you push to that goal that you have. And that is that responsibility. Accountability partners work. Accountability programs help, and they're effective.
And it's not to say that you have to, because you're like, I can't afford that. We get that. But the idea is that you have to understand the importance of it, and you have to do your homework. So if you're the small business owner that knows they need to be more brand centric minded, and you're listening to this podcast or you're reading our book, you're off to a good start, right? Yeah. It's a matter of educating yourself in branding, and don't buy into so many the same methodologies and things that so many marketing agencies are pitching, which are just, it's smoke and mirrors. It really is. You just have to, either educate yourself or rely on people that know more than you do about this subject. But it's kind of the dormant power that your small business has that you want to unlock through your brand.
Right.
Everything from the tip of the iceberg, how you treat your logo, the reverence by which you treat your logo assets, to the consistency by which you execute everything visual to your client, to making sure the non-visual signals of your brand are on point as well. And this comes down to everything from, price point to a headline of a print ad, to how you greet them when they walk in, or how you answer the phone, or how you respond to emails, or how you deal with a customer complaint. They're all things,
right.
And that's, again, what branding entails, is that, as we've said before, business is the transaction, brand is the relationship.
Yeah.
And relationship that you have with your audience.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, I feel like it's just, that long-term mindset and being responsible, being proactive, and then just really investing for the future in that long-term vision. But friends, our cup has ran dry on this round of Brandy. Thank you again for tuning in and sipping a little on brand responsibility today. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.